Howdy everyone, it's Sam. Welcome back to Wobble and Jaw Sports. If you're new around here, hope I can get you to consider to like the content and subscribe to the channel. But if you're a regular around these here parts, thank you very much for the continuous support. Let's get stuck in round 23. Round 23 starts on Thursday night from Accor Stadium. South Sydney Rabbitohs host the Melbourne Storm. The Storm are the favourites at $1.17. South Sydney are $5.10 outsiders. The Storm, they played at Accor Stadium last year against South Sydney and they were able to get the W on that occasion. And the team list for South Sydney, there's a few changes. Cody Walker does come back in. Good timing because young Taupa'a is out with an injury. Havili and Jacob Host are also out with injuries as well, so Shaq Mitchell comes into the fold and Michael Cheekham will start at second row, but Tallis Duncan's still starting off the bench this weekend. Maybe it would have been his opportunity to start this Thursday night. Meanwhile, for the Melbourne Storm, the few changes in their forward pack, primarily Eli Katoa is out with an injury. Tui Kamikamica actually comes back from an injury, but it's Nelson Asofa-Solomona that's getting shifted into the lock position, and Chris Lewis is making his first appearance in a number of months, coming off the bench. Melbourne Storm 13+. Friday night football, there are two matches, and game number one is from Cbus Super Stadium. The Titans are the favourites at $1.53. The Sharks are $2.51 outsiders. Gold Coast on an incredible run at this time, and even though Braden Trindle is not playing in this game, I wouldn't have thought that the Titans would be as big of favourites, even favourites at all, coming into this game Friday, 6 o'clock. So the backline for the Gold Coast is unchanged. Keanu Kinney has been unreal this year, absolutely sensational. The forward pack for them is relatively unchanged. Khaleesi Haas starts with jersey 12 on his back. Beau Fermor is the exclusion. I believe it was bruised kidneys that he sustained against the Broncos last weekend, so rest up to Beau Fermor. It's Khaleesi Haas that starts in jersey number 12, and then the rest of the interchange reads Liu, Jolliffe, Pahulu and Keenan Palasia. And Jolliffe, for being out for the number of months that he was or had been, coming back last weekend, I thought he played really strong. He was one of Gold Coast's best before he suffered his long-term injury. And now going into the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks now, Ronaldo Mulitalo thought he possibly could have returned this weekend, but he's not going to. Sam Stonestreet is on the wing, filling up for Ronaldo Mulitalo. And the halves pairing is Atkinson and Blake Brayley. Therefore, the hooker is Cameron McInnes. Jack Williams starts in the lock position. It's his first game in a couple of weeks, I think, off the top of the dome. And the interchange for Cronulla is Beryl, Talakai, Rudolph, and Hazelton. You would suggest, I think anyway, that the Titans are fractionally better in form in comparison to the Cronulla Sharks, even though they're still in fourth position. These two sides met maybe just 5 weeks ago, and the Gold Coast just pipped them, and that was with Nico Hines in the Cronulla Sharks outfit. The one-on-one matchup of David Fafita versus Britton Nikora, again, that's salivating to me. That's going to be a huge watch. Don't know how much they get out of dummy half. I know that there are some fans out there that don't rate Blake Brayley's service out of dummy half, but I don't know how much more they're going to get out of Cameron McInnes. It won't be as dynamic. It's surprising to see that Sam Verrills has also been named at hooker after he had to go off late last week in their romp against the Brizzy Broncos. I feel like this is a bit of a trap game. It was only a couple of weeks ago where I think the Titans put in a bit of an ordinary shocker. I forget who it was against, unfortunately, but this Cronulla Sharks outfit, they don't fear Cbus Super Stadium, and I know that they lost to the Titans recently. They're in form though, the Gold Coast. All right, I'll give it to them. I feel like this is a trap game for everyone. They should be tipping the Sharks, but it is just that loss of Braden Trindle where he has been just that extra little bit of class for them to get over the line over the past 3 weeks. I'm going to tip the Titans, not confidently, but I'm going to tip the Titans 1-12. The main event on Friday night emanates from CommBank Stadium. The Eels host the Penrith Panthers. Eels are $5.80. The Panthers are $1.14 favourites. And Eels going to New Zealand for the first time since 2017 and getting the dub against the Warriors big time. Even though it was only 30-20 in the end, they dominated for 90% of that game. Meanwhile, the Penrith Panthers had a bit of a tough time. They seem to traditionally do have a tough time against the Newcastle Knights, but they did end up winning 22 points to 14 on Sunday. So the lineup is 1-7 unchanged. Luca Moretti is the out for the Parramatta Eels, and in for him is Matt Dury. That's the only change after Parramatta won in New Zealand last weekend. And then for the Penrith Panthers, Dane Laurie returns at fullback, pushing out the young debutant into the reserves list. And that's just about it. Maverick Gaia coming off the bench this weekend. That's just about it. I tipped against the Panthers about 2 weeks ago against the Dolphins, and it clipped me in the backside. Don't tip against the Panthers. Don't tip against the perennial champions. Penrith, I'll give them 13 plus. Super Saturday, and there are 3 contests. Match number 1 is from GIO Stadium. The Raiders host Manly. 226 about the Raiders. Manly are $1.64, and I would say that throughout 2024, I'd say maybe 60, possibly 55, 60 to 55% of the time, the team that's coming off the bye have been sluggish, and Manly is that team coming off of the bye. So I'm just a little bit hesitant, and that's a decent amount of value for the Raiders playing at home, and they have definitely changed. They've improved since Jamal Fogarty has come back into that team. Let's go into the team list now for the Canberra Raiders, and this will also be Josh Papali'i's 300th extravaganza, or game 301, down in Canberra in front of the faithful. So they'll have something planned for him. They should get a pretty decent crowd out there at GIO, like they always do whenever Manly travel down. So, but the loss for them is Zach Hosking. He is out for the season. The poor bugger started like a house on fire, and then just his shoulders said, not this year, maybe next. So Zach Hosking is out. Therefore, it is Semi Sasangi who takes his place. And that's just about it. That's it for the Raiders. That's the only change. Hosking out, Sasangi in after last weekend's close classic against the Bulldogs at Belmore. And then for the Manly Seagulls, huge news for them coming out from the hooker position is Lachlan Croker. He is back for the first time since, I think, round number 9, like late April, early May, due to a hell of a concussion and neck issues as well. So it's going to be good to see him return. And then the rest of it, Lee Haihopawati maintains out there on the wing. The forward pack, Paseka, Brown, Olkawatu, I think that's his return, is it not? I think this is his return game. Carl Lawton, Gerbo, and Tofafo Sipley rounds out the interchange in jersey 17. Manly, their attack is probably what's going to have them win this game. The Raiders, they need to show their grittiness like they've showed for the majority of 2024. It is that sort of game where you look at Manly and go, they should get it done, but the Raiders, you just never know. You just never friggin' know with the Raiders. I'm going to tip Manly, but very, very cautious about what the Raiders might do for Josh Papali'i's 300th game down in Canberra. And the second game on Super Saturday is from Queensland Country Bank Stadium, the Cowboys versus the Broncos in the all-Queensland affair. Cowboys are $1.44 favourites. Oh my. The Broncos are $2.81, and this Saturday it is a celebration, a big remembrance day for Carl Webb, Cowboy 168. This is the heritage jersey that they came out with this past fortnight. They should be really fired up for this game, because if they win, I think it just about locks them into the top 8 and keeps their top 4 finals well and truly alive. It's an enormous game. A lot of people have said as well that Broncos, they're done, their season is finished. Well, mathematically it's not. If they win this game and results go their way, they are still alive. They probably don't deserve it, but technically their season is genuinely technically alive, but the team list doesn't look good for them. So going into the Cowboys outfit now, so the 1 to 7 is unchanged. The forward pack is McLean and McIntyre. Lukey was rumoured to have missed this game, but he has been named. Jeremiah Nene will be wearing jersey 24 because they're retiring jersey 12 for Carl Webb this Saturday. And Ruben Cotter returns from a concussion. The interchange reads Edwards, McKaylee, Fenafuiaki and Griffin Neem. Just a shout out to Harrison Edwards. It's been difficult to try and get a gauge on his game since he's shifted up from the Dogs up to the North Queensland Cowboys, and I think last weekend was his best game. I thought he really put in a good effort, so he's on a slow upward trajectory, so really good to see from Harrison Edwards that he's taken the opportunity really nicely. Now for the Brisbane Broncos now, Reece Walsh, rumoured to have played 5/8 this weekend, still might, but he's been named fullback. Josh Rogers is in for Ezra Mem, whose season potentially might be done with a syndesmosis injury. Speaking of injuries, Payne Haas, he is done with a Liz Frank injury. That's horrible news for Brisbane fans. The forward pack now reads Corey Jensen and Xavier Willison. Willison's just as tall as friggin' Payne Haas. He's just as mean looking as well, so keep an eye on him. The back row, Piakura, Ricky and Carrigan. The interchange reads Moser, Hetherington, Sailor and Tapa'u. So only the 2 props, but there's a little bit of craft coming off the interchange bench for the Brisbane Broncos. Cowboys 13+. The last game on Super Saturday is the Dragons versus the Bulldogs, and in some circles, some are saying that this is the game of the round, and if you had told me and a lot of other people that over a month ago, we would have laughed you out the door, but it's a pretty important game. It is the Dragons who are the outsiders at $2.26, whereas the Dogs are $1.64. I thought maybe that would have been closer. Possibly it will come in more for the Dragons this weekend after they got a surprise victory, one of the upsets, if not the upset of the season, against the Storm down in Melbourne on Saturday, and the Dogs just keeping the Raiders at bay at Belmore on Sunday afternoon. So for the Dragons team lineup, they are the same. They're 1 to 17. Unchanged. Why ruin a good thing? Meanwhile, for the Bulldogs, it's still the same outfit for them. They're unchanged. So I don't think they're quite full strength, both of these sides, but huge contest in prospect out at Cogra, which is already sold out. Haven't seen Cogra sold out since 2009, and I think Bloke in a Bar produced a stat that said that a Dragons Bulldogs game hasn't sold out or truly sold out Cogra since 1978 or something like that. So these two sides also, some would also consider it to be a rivalry. So going to be a very interesting game, but I'm going to go the Bulldogs on this one. I feel like it is going to be their defense. The Dragons have just been too inconsistent in 2024. Mind you, they're in 8th at the moment. So in saying that, they've been a bit inconsistent, hard to wrangle in on their form guide. I think the Bulldogs are just a little bit more trustworthy, but Dragons at 220+. I don't blame you if you tip Dragons, so I'm going to go the Bulldogs 1 to 12. Now into the Sunday games, and match number 1 is from Suncorp Stadium. The Dolphins host the Warriors. Dolphins $1.40. The Warriors at $2.97, and I think that the Warriors might come in a little bit before kickoff because the announcement was made yesterday that Sean Johnson will be retiring at season's end on his day, the most must-watch player in the NRL. He is absolutely brilliant, and I had the opportunity to meet him once out at Cogra as well, and he was nothing but a gentleman. So not only is a legend on the field, he's also a hell of a legend off of it as well. So going into the team list now for the Dolphins, a couple of changes. Cody Nikorima returns. He's going to be playing 5'8", and Tavita Pangai Jr. also returns after recovering from the calf complaint. And then for the New Zealand Warriors now, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck is going to play centre, Edward Kossi out on the wing, and it's Harris Tavita and Sean Johnson in the halves this weekend. I'll tell you what, I might be tempted to go see Sean Johnson play out at Suncorp this Sunday. Now the forward pack, Dylan Walker will be playing lock this weekend. The interchange reads Lusick, Ale, Tavanga, and Lika Halasima. It's a game that the Warriors, now that they've got the news of Sean Johnson, one of two things will happen. They'll come out fired up, they'll get the dub against the Dolphins, and they'll just keep their season alive. Mathematically, it's still possible. They'll just keep their season alive. Meanwhile, for the Dolphins, meanwhile on the other side of the coin, I should say, they'll come out and play depressed. And we've seen that before from different teams. Look at how the North Queensland Cowboys played in 2018. The Dolphins, man, they're such a plucky side, an impressively tough team, and they've taken the Panthers, the Roosters, all the way to the edge. I know they dropped against the Titans, so they're kind of due a win here, so I'm going to go the Dolphins in this game. But the Warriors are going to come out firing. I feel like they should come out firing, not just this weekend, but for the rest of the season. And the final game of round 23, the Knights versus the Tigers. Newcastle $1.28. The Tigers are $3.70. And just over the past 3 or 4 seasons, the Tigers have given the Knights a fair bit of curry over the past few years. So this might be a little bit closer than anticipated. But we'll go into the team list now, and it looks like that Jackson Hastings still will not play for the Newcastle Knights this Sunday, and that's pretty much the only change. They're still 1-17. The Knights got very, very close against the Penrith Panthers, and it was just some Nathan Cleary magic that got the Panthers over the white line. Then for the West Tigers now, Justin Olam, Latu Fainu are out, so playing at centre, Adam Dewey returns. That's a massive inclusion. That's a good inclusion for them. And then it's Galvin and Aiden Caesar in the halves. Yeah, the Knights, again, they're a weird team to try and gauge for form, but I've got to go the Newcastle Knights. Still a shame that Bradman Best isn't available. Still, he mustn't be more than 2 weeks away. So I'm going to go the Newcastle Knights to win this game 1-12. Yo, thank you very much, guys, for the continuous support. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Hope your team wins this weekend, except for the Broncos. And I'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you. Take care. Adios.